And good morning, everybody. Welcome into Pattison Ave Phanatics Show. I'm your host, James Squirzer, filling in for TK once again this week. And with me, as always, is the group of companions on this Saturday morning of the dog days of hopefully the summer. Join us today, Joey Marks. What's going on, man?
What is up, Philadelphia? Happy Memorial Day weekend. The official start of the summer season.
Absolutely. And joining us today is from down the shore. We call him Al from the shore, I guess you could say. Al Safari. What's going on, my brother?
It's nice to take a day break out here and hopefully you can see some of the nice beach behind me, but probably not because my big ass is covering it.
Yeah, absolutely. We got a lot to get to today, but something that's a little bit that everything about the Philly sports scenes today. But today, Joey, we're going to surprise some fans today. What are we going to talk about on this very special Saturday?
Well, we're gonna have a fun day. We had therapy session last week. Now we're really going to play with the glass half full today. We're gonna have. I want everybody out there who's listening, everyone who's going to be trying to message in to the show. Please get on your phones and message in. Today is GM Manager for a Day. That's redundant, but okay. Um, but
Day.
essentially, you're all going to put your GM hats on for today, and you're going to be the best. You're going to do your best Howie Roseman impersonation as you possibly can. Yes, Matty B, even you. So the idea is, we're gonna start with the Sixers. We're gonna go into the Flyers. We're gonna dive a little into the Phillies and the Eagles later on in the show. One of the things that I'm gonna do is there's some upcoming free agents. Now, let's just take for granted that when we start with the Sixers, let's just take for granted that Tobias Harris could be traded. Let's take for granted that James Harden might not come back. So there's where the money is. Because instead of people like, well, they may not have money. Okay, let's just act like there's a max contract that's available for the Sixers, that somehow Daryl Morey can make that work. So I'm gonna name some names, but I'm not gonna name them like all the list. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna break down the list. So I'm gonna break it down in threes. I'm gonna name three players, and I'm gonna turn to you guys, especially you guys out there, and I want you to either choose one of those players or none of those players. So we're going to start at the bottom. Mason Plumlee, PJ Washington, and Dylan Brooks. So Mason Plumlee, PJ Washington, and Dylan Brooks. Al, I'll start with you. Any one of those pique your interest?
Not really, to be honest with you. It's you got three good players, but are you talking about looking for a difference maker?
Oh. Can you guys hear me again?
Yeah.
Sorry about that.
So a difference maker, a role player, just somebody that can come in and whether it's on the bench or whether it's like just a role player. Obviously, these guys are not going to be max player guys, but they could help the team in different ways.
Well, then I go Plumlee in this sense. If you're just looking at a role player, bench player, guy who can get significant minutes, and when he does, he could be that 1A guy. He's not going to be a starter in any which way, but if you need him to step up to play extra minutes, I think he's got in my eyes, he's got of all them even defense, offense, like not even, but the best you're going to get compared to the other two. So where you're not going to have, where you have a guy has great defense but can't shoot for a lick, or a guy who can shoot but is a huge defensive liability. I go Plumlee.
James?
Yeah, I'm right there with Joe. I'm sorry, right there with Al too. I don't see much of a difference between either one. I know Dylan Brooks is a little bit of a head case, but if I had to pick one out of the three, I got to go with Plumlee too.
Yeah, I'd go with Plumlee only because I feel like if I had to pick one of these three, I would pick a defensive big man that when Embiid comes off the floor, there's a not a drop off defensively, but there is a significant I guess pure significant security when it comes down to getting the rebounds. So yeah, I would go with Mason Plumlee if I had to pick one. But so your next three are Grant Williams, Jordan Clarkson, and Karis LeVert. James,
Hmm.
I'll start with you. Any of those guys pique your interest?
Man, that's a tough one. I know Clarkson's good sometimes, like on the I think he's a good bench player, right? I'm not like too much good about much about his stats, but what was the other two? I'm sorry about that, Joe.
So it's Karis LeVert, um, Jordan Clarkson, and Grant Williams.
Hmm. You know what? I gotta go with Karis LeVert. I think LeVert's a very good role player. I think he does very well with Cleveland. I think he could be a good fit here. Probably like back in the day when I think Howard Eskin was like hyped about him or Tyrese Halliburton back when like before we got James Harden. So yeah, I mean I'll take a flyer on Karis LeVert if the money was right. But then again, who knows what Maury will do?
Al?
I'll probably go with Grant Williams, power forward. Probably he's he's kind of that what we said with Tucker. What we were missing kind of has that he'll bully in there, but I mean he's gonna score more points than Tucker will. I mean anybody can do that, but he's the kind of guy that's gonna come in and I think can make a difference and make the other team work harder for their points and their boards.
So I'm gonna go Jordan Clarkson.
Hmm.
If I had to pick, and only reason why I like Jordan Clarkson is because this is a guy who I feel like is, and I know people are gonna be like, well, we don't want that, but I feel like he's a guy that like Reese Hoskins, where when he gets hot, he gets like on fire. And
Right.
I feel like a guy who can shoot, like create his own shot, can shoot well from 3-point range, is an adequate defender. I'm not going to say he's he stifles the other opposing offense, but he's an adequate defender. I feel like Jordan Clarkson could give you a little bit more versatility, especially coming off that bench. And you got to keep in mind, Jordan Clarkson has played on pretty good teams. He hasn't been on a team yet that's won a championship, but he's played on really good teams. Um, the next three are, I think, as we go up this list, we're going to start to have more compelling names that are more interesting. The next three are uh, Boban Bogdanovic, um, Gary Trent Jr., and Deontay DiVincenzo.
Ooh.
Al, I'll start with you. Any of those names pique your interest?
Hmm. I like Deontay, and it's not just because we're both Italian. Um, but who was the second one? Because I have a feeling this is going to be a toss up here
Gary
for me.
Trent Jr. Gary Trent Jr.
I do like Gary too. That's. I was making sure you said that, but yeah, I mean, trying to think. This one. I mean, he's young, right? He's about 25 years old, 24, 25 years
Yep.
old.
Yep.
So you have a guy who can stick around, play. Not the other guys are any much older, but um, oh, man, I probably would go with Gary Trent Jr. in this one. And then the only reason is I think of the two, he can be again not more all around everyday player off the bench. Um, in spot starts could be useful, but overall, I like his play. I like his style of play, and I like how he will. I like he he's not the flashiest guy in the world, but he gets you those meaningful minutes, those meaningful points. And I think of the other two, if it comes to a big moment, you might find a little bit coming up short.
Hmm.
James.
Hmm. Man, that is a very good one. I gotta go with Dante DiVincenzo because I mean he's one guy that I knew back from the Villanova days that was a very big piece in that 2018 national championship game, and I mean as far as Boban, I mean it would be great to know that we reunite him with Tobias
Yeah.
Harris again, but I mean yeah, but as far as a good six man, probably you would probably a player off the bench similar to like what I guess you could say like a Kyle Korver gave you basically, but I think Dante DiVincenzo might be a good piece to bring in as a tryout. So I mean I would be okay if Archie Diacono was too, but then again, I mean you gotta love those
Oh well, yeah.
Italians
If you put an Archie in there, I'll take him in a heartbeat.
for sure. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, but I gotta go with DiVincenzo for sure.
You know, as the only Irish guy that's on this panel so far, you know, I'm feeling kind of marginalized, but it's okay
Hey,
because
I
I'm
didn't
gonna.
pick him. I went
I
overall
know,
with a
I
better
know,
pick.
I know. But I'm actually in lockstep with you guys, and for a couple different reasons actually. Dante DiVincenzo, he piques my interest not because he's a Villanova guy and I'm a Temple guy and we don't
Right.
like each other, but the idea that this guy the one thing that the Sixers lacked at the end of this season, and I think everyone can speak on this, is passion and heart and fight and like the will to want to win for this city.
Mhm.
And I think Dante, coming from Nova, coming from this city, being in this environment for as long as he was, and also I believe I'm correct in this. I haven't double checked, but that Dante won a title in Milwaukee. And so you had to kind of keep in mind he's already got that winning pedigree. He's got, he's young. He has that Philly passion. I feel like he brings that kind of that killer instinct to the Sixers going forward. And it just astounds me that he would be there. And if he were, I don't even know if he'd be a guy coming off the bench. I honestly would contemplate starting him.
Well, I guess that does depend on your current lineup too
Yes,
at that time because
yes,
if everything changes, yeah.
yes.
And do you know what the funny thing is, Joe? I probably would have went with Dante over, but the only reason is I have this week, and this is just my feeling. Is it's when you try to bring a guy back to Philly, I always worry about those moments. Even though I agree with you in the winning pedigree and the killer instinct, I do really like Dante, and it was probably the only reason is because he's from Philly. And sometimes, I mean, it does pay off occasionally, but sometimes I feel it could also hold guys back because distractions. Sometimes you have to when you with a hometown crowd, if things get tight or get a little scary at times, it's 10 times worse.
Yeah.
So I
But
mean,
I will give you a prime example: Hassan Reddick coming home, and look
yeah,
at the
well, that's
kind of
one of the
season
last few
he had.
times it did work out. I agree with you. I
Yeah, I
listen. I'm not
mean,
saying it doesn't work. I'm just saying I do worry about those things. But again, I think if anybody who could overcome that, he's not like of those two. Like I said, you could coin flip that for me. I'll take either one.
Right.
yeah, it could be like a
Um.
Sharif Miller thing too. Anyway, before we go any further, Joe,
Yep.
today's show is probably sponsored by Sherry'sTickets.com. Save 10% by using the promo code EOP10. Great prices and no hidden fees for sports, concerts, and theaters. Visit our website at www.sherry'stickets.com. Family owned and operated since 1946, and tell them that the boys over at Pattison Ave and EOP sent you.
And look, it's concert season is in full swing. Go
Oh
Yep.
to
yeah.
Sherry's Tickets, get yourself a couple good concert seats and a good concert venue. Go enjoy the summer. This is the unofficial, official, wherever you land on this start of the summer season. Go to Sherry's Tickets and go get your concert tickets today and use that promo code EOP10 to get 10% off.
Yes, sir.
Once again, I'm going to remind you guys, please get on your phones, message in, tell us what you think so far. Put your GM hat on. Be extreme, be radical. Let's just throw it all at the wall, because right now we could use it.
Yeah,
So
definitely. I'm looking at the comments right now. Nobody's like chiming in. I'm surprised about this.
yeah.
They're probably
So
all down the shore for the like hours.
yeah,
I
they're
still
all
could chime in.
yeah.
It's 2023. It's almost impossible not to chime in. Come on, people.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Exactly right.
the next three, one is definitely going to be a topic of interest. But the next three are Alec Burks, Russell Westbrook, and Christian Wood. James, I'll start with you.
You know how much I like my Seinfeld. I like that name, Alec Burks. It reminds me of something that Jerry Seinfeld would say about Alec Berg back in the day, getting tickets for the Rangers Devils game, and the list goes on and on about that. But yeah, man, that is a very good one. I know Al Burks back in the day was the Sixers. I think it was during that Brett Brown era. So I guess you can try to bring him back.
He was in that Golden State Warrior trade, wasn't he?
Yes.
Did they trade with him at the deadline with the Warriors? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'll take a flyer on him. I guess. Don't know much about. What was the other two?
Russell Westbrook and Christian Wood.
Russell Westbrook. I mean, he's going to be on his third team in the last 4 years. It's like the guy's probably either like he's like don't have it anymore. It's just going to be a waste of time. And for Wood, I don't know much about Wood's stats either.
Well, to just correct you a little, Russell, if he were to come to the Sixers, it would be his fourth team in 5 years. So
Jesus,
just a little,
oh my
food
God.
for thought. Al, what do you think? Which one would you choose?
Definitely not Russell. Not a fan of him. Never really have been. I think he's been overrated for a lot. I'm not saying he hasn't had a great career, but overrated, especially over the last few years. We saw him come up small in the playoffs when he played with the Wizards. When we played them in the playoffs, like 2-3 years ago. And I'll tell you right now, I'd probably go Christian Wood in this situation. Russell Westbrook looks too much like a Ninja Turtle for my taste. But no, I've never been a fan. But the only way I like about Wood, I mean, normally his minutes you're seeing with him about anywhere from like around 15 minutes a game off the bench. He's played other games where he's gone up to 25 to 30 minutes when needed, but he still averages like 16 points a game. You know, you're gonna get a guy averages 16 points a game. You're gonna get a guy that averages like seven rebounds a game, and he has a very high shooting percentage. So a guy that's what we need. That's what sometimes we lack on the bench, and we've seen that throughout. We've seen that throughout the last few seasons, not just recently, not just today, but the bench coming up small, and it's always kind of haunted us coming into it. So if anybody, I think Russell Westbrook, you can't. I mean, he could play off the bench. Would he accept that? You know what I mean?
Yep.
I don't think so. I don't think he does. I mean, the guy has an attitude problem. You saw him like literally leave a locker room to find a fan during the playoffs. And this was recent. I think it was this year or last year. I forget what it was. To go. Because the guy was, kind of yelling at him. The guy was rousing him a little bit and telling him, "Oh, you suck," and all that. But as professional as he is, he goes out and tries to find him, and goes out of his way not instead of worrying about the game. And Russell Westbrook had a good game that night. So if you're looking at a guy who's got better talent, it's going to be Russell Westbrook. But A, who's going to cost you more? And B, is he going to accept the role in doing that? And I don't think so. And like I said, just never really been a Russell Westbrook fan. Just didn't like him personally, and I feel like he's a guy who will put stats up, but not when we need him.
So for me, I'm kind of in lockstep with you guys in a little bit. So Alec Burks, I've seen him. I've seen enough of him to know that I don't want him. He is what he is. Russell Westbrook is like the Nnamdi Asomugha of the NBA right now. He's
point.
kind of like this good name, but no talent, and not anymore. I should say. I'm not saying he never had talent. I'm saying he doesn't have the talent now. He's resting his laurels on his name alone, and that won't get him a max deal. And if I'm correct, wasn't he the guy that the iconic Philadelphia 76er fan that flipped the birds at him? Wasn't
Yes,
Russell
yes.
the guy?
Well, remember
Okay.
they dumped the popcorn on him at
Yeah,
the playoff
That's what it
game.
was.
Yeah.
That's right.
And you know what? I don't like Russell Westbrook, but I don't condone that. Yeah, flip the
No, I
bird all
don't
you
either.
want, but yeah,
Right.
yeah.
I don't condone it either. But if the Philly fans don't like him, I don't think they'll flip the script that quickly.
No. And I
Christian
don't think
Wood
he'll do. I don't think he would do enough to win people over either.
No, I don't either. Christian Wood has always been someone, even from a distance, that's kind of intrigued me. He's a guy who's a athletic four that can get up and down the court pretty quickly, who is a valuable defender and a valuable rebounder. And I feel like down the stretch, we lacked rebounding, especially on the offensive set, but more importantly on the defensive set, especially in Boston, because I felt like we were one and done, and Boston was getting like 3 offensive rebounds. It felt like 3 offensive rebounds per possession, and that just can't happen. So having a guy that can get up and down the floor, and let's be honest, Joel Embiid's not getting any younger. His legs are not going to get any better when going up and down that court. So we need a guy who's going to be able to get down the court quickly enough. So I don't feel like Christian Wood would demand a high value as far as price points. So I would go Christian Wood. One of the things that I wanted to ask you guys really quick about Russell Westbrook. Do you think, and I'll ask this to you, Al, do you think that there's going to be any team that's going to A, give him a max contract, or B, even take a gamble on him after what they've seen?
Somebody will take a gamble on him. That max contract, I don't think so. But again, he has an ego. He has the pedigree to be good. We all seen Russell Westbrook, at one point be good. I can't sit here and tell you he sucked. I just wasn't ever a big fan of him. Never a big fan of his play constantly. And over the years, he's diminished. He's no youngster. And for the money that he will command versus what we can get out of him, and if I'm being a GM here, I got to think like a Sixer GM. If you're saying, if everything was fair and square and we had a blank checkbook, there's no cap issues, there's no space issues on the bench, then yeah, I would say you could take a gamble on him. Somebody will take a gamble on him. Somebody who thinks maybe they're a super, an ex superstar less, away from being a contender, and the Sixers could meet that. But if I'm going to spend that money and deal with the headache that he's going to bring, I'm going somewhere else.
Yeah. Your next 3 are going to be D'Angelo Russell. We got rid of one Rivers. We may bring another one in. Austin Rivers and Harrison Barnes. I'm going to start with you, James. Out of those 3, out of D'Angelo Russell, Austin Rivers, and Harrison Barnes, if you had to pick one, who would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Shoot.
Like I said, these are going to get trickier and a little bit more harder as a GM to kind of come to that decision, because they are going to be closer in high and higher caliber talent.
Yeah, that those 3 probably is the one that's gonna confuse me the most, because of just like 3 good players. I know D'Angelo Russell did very well in that trade when he went back to the Lakers. So it's Harrison Barnes and the other, I forgot the other one.
D'Angelo Russell.
Austin Rivers.
D'Angelo.
And
Austin Rivers. Austin Rivers. I know much. I know that he's a good bench player. Austin is. Harrison Barnes. I mean, yeah. He was like during that Golden State era. Like he was really probably other than him and Iguodala were probably like 1 and 2 that were good on that bench. So I got to pick one. So I guess I'll go with D'Angelo Russell. Sorry.
Al, what do you think?
I'm going to agree with James on this one and go D'Angelo Russell. I mean, he's going to get you your 15. He averages about anywhere from 13 to 15 points a game. You're going to get a lot more assists at him because that's the one thing the Sixers are lacking. What we saw, especially against Boston, was ball movement. They look good against the Nets, but you're going to need somebody who can really move the ball around. I mean, that's what threw the Sixers off against Boston. They kept them on their heels, and they moved that ball around. They had 5 passes, but those 5 passes were telegraphed, were scripted. Not telegraphed, but scripted to get you off, to allow that wide open shot and allow them to take their shots. And I think with D'Angelo Russell, you're going to get that from him. He can get you, 25, 30 minutes a play a game. So he can come off the bench. He can give you a spot start. I don't think he's going to break the bank to do so either. And I don't know. I really do. I of all those guys, having another Rivers here might just not be good mentality wise. I feel like that person's coming in kind of coming in with a bullseye on their back at that point. But I mean, but also as a GM, you got to have to sit back. You got to think. You got to be like, I'm not. I can't worry about what the fans are going to think. I mean, you got to think a little bit. Maybe that's more what the ownership would think about because you were talking about selling jerseys and seats and everything else and paraphernalia. But I'm not worried about that thing over. Rivers is not a bad player, but D'Angelo Russell has the pedigree to do so. He's not old. Like I said, he can rebound when needed. I mean, he's not going to get you a lot of rebounds, but you're looking at about 3-4 rebounds a game. And that's one of the things another thing that really hurt the Sixers. Even though you have one of those dominant big men in the league, the rebounds weren't coming from him a lot. So I go D'Angelo Russell, and who was this here? Joe Saul. If Harden leaves, Barnes, if not, Rivers blows. Yeah, I agree with the Rivers comment. And I actually agree with Joe Sullivan across the board on this one, but I'm going to go, like I said, Russell to me, he's going to be more, he's going to help you move that ball around the court more and keep defense on their heels.
Here's the thing. I go back like a year or two ago, I believe it was last season. D'Angelo Russell was in Minnesota, and Minnesota went on a run, and it was epic. And D'Angelo Russell was a big part of that. And I felt like D'Angelo Russell, even when he was with the Nets, was a good point guard. Now, am I saying he's like a top 5 point guard in the league? No. But he's a good point guard. And I think if I had to go and say, all right, we got Maxey and Embiid, we need a guy who can get 20 and 10 consistently. I feel like that's D'Angelo Russell. And again, I'm with Al in the sense that D'Angelo kind of is one of those scrappy point guards that will go and get dirty and muck it up in the post and grab some rebounds, crucial rebounds. And he's also not that bad of a defender on the perimeter. He had a point where he was top 10 in steals by a point guard a couple of years ago. And so you got to imagine someone that can bring a lot of different good points of view to your team, good characteristics to your team. That's something that could be valuable in so many ways, not just on one statistical value. The next three.
Before we go any further, we have another sponsorship here. Today's sponsor is proudly sponsored by Cherry Firm. That is David R. Cherry Esquire at the Cherry Firm at workers' compensation, motor vehicle accidents, personal injury, and criminal law. Give them a call today at 610-565-0300. That is the David R. Cherry Firm at 610-565-0300. Tell them that the boys over at EOP and Pattison Ave sent you.
And let me just say about Mr. Cherry, he's an excellent lawyer. an excellent dude and a straight up person with you. He's there to help. So please, if you need a lawyer in that regard, please give David Cherry a call. To kind of go to the next three, and I'll start. This one is hard for me because there's some old wounds along with some new wounds that kind of get put into this next three. You have um you have Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, and Cameron Johnson. Now, Cameron Johnson out of this three interests me the most because I feel like he has the biggest upside. I feel like now look, I'm not gonna act like Draymond Green doesn't have the pedigree. But sometimes you have to ask yourself, are you getting the Tyrone Hill? Are you getting a guy that's towards such the end of his career and has already proven what he needs to prove that he's just coming here for a paycheck, not for pride, not for winning, not for any of that. What Draymond Green would we get? And then with regards to, um, you know, Cameron Johnson, I feel like we would have a young gun that would be able to kind of be able to utilize some of his athletic ability. Um, you know, it astounds me that Cameron Johnson, it could be that he could come to the Sixers and really be an asset. The other person is Jeremy Grant. And Jeremy Grant was drafted by the Sixers. And he was atrocious when he was here. He did not have a good shot. Allah has said on several occasions on the telecast that he's been so impressed with how Jeremy's shot has improved. I don't know if that's enough to bring him back. It's kind of like the Alec Burks. Like, I've seen what I've seen. I'm not entirely sure, like, if I'm going to get more than what I thought I'm going to, I'm not. It's kind of like seller's remorse, but buyer beware kind of thing. Um, so I'm going with Cameron Johnson. So out of Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, and Cameron Johnson, who would you pick?
Well, you can take Draymond Green and put him off. I'm not. I agree with you in that sense. I'm just not. He's not anything I could see into the future with this team. I don't see I don't see him putting us over a hump, getting us through a second round playoff. Like, I don't see that happening with him. The other two, looking at either Grant or Johnson. I mean, points per game. You're probably going to get a couple more now from Johnson than you would get. I mean, from Grant than you would get from Johnson. But when you're looking at assists and shooting percentage, they're fairly close. So ultimately, I probably go with I go with the devil I know versus the devil I don't know. And sometimes players need to leave and come back before they can really play well. So, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if you saw Jeremy with an I, by the way, Jeremy Grant come back and play better, maybe for the team that he had. Because, like, it's not like he left like, oh, they got rid of me and I was doing so well. Like, he knew he needed it. But then again, is his numbers kind of inflated because he's playing for the Trailblazers. He's playing on a lesser team. But he, being on the Trailblazers, he's playing against, some top tier talent. But, on the West Coast, there are a lot more shooters than defenders. So ultimately, I probably go with Grant just because he's the devil I know versus the devil I don't know.
All right, James, who would you have?
Before I get on to my prediction, actually, of who they would pick, Freddie Burns checks in and said, it's basically saying you didn't just compare Draymond Green to Tyrone Hill, didn't you?
No.
No.
We didn't talk about Tyrone Hill, no.
No,
I think it's not even that close.
I was saying Tyrone Hill that we got him towards the end of his career. That's how I was referring to.
Okay.
We got
Gotcha. There we go.
We got him towards the end of his career, and not at a very good point at the end of his career. Draymond
Right.
brings a lot of cachet, but what does he have left to prove? Like
Yeah.
Tyrone Hill didn't have he had a lot to prove because he didn't have the cachet, but his body and his skill set and his age showed.
Yeah.
Yeah, and here's the other thing. I mean, he's still playing. He's a guy who's playing, 25 to 30 minutes. And I'm talking about Green for a second.
Yeah.
He is a guy who's going to play 30 minutes, but you're not getting double digit scores from him.
Right.
I mean, is he kind of like a Sloman Shield type player? Like just because he's on the court, it makes you play a little differently, but it doesn't make a difference in my world. And I'm going to say, yeah, no, he don't make a difference in my world. That's why I'm going with Jeremy Grant.
So
I need what as the GM right now. I'm looking at players who can make. I look at the future and I also look at the now. I mean, I don't know about you guys, and I know I don't want to get off the beaten path here, but I'm looking at guys who can be more of a facilitator into the next coming years. Because if we keep looking at focusing on next year, we're gonna keep pushing our chips in. We're gonna be cashing out poor. You know what I mean? And then that's and that's the thing is like we have to. I'm trying to think if my GM stance is if we're making some moves, we need to bring guys in who are affordable but who can come off the bench, put numbers up, and with grit. That's the other thing, that killer instinct we've talked about before. You need that grit, you need that killer instinct, and a guy later in his years right now, not all guys, but a lot of times guys like Draymond Green who aren't scoring you 10 points or the rebounds, and all that stuff are, they're good. They're not terrible. You're looking about averaging 6 or 7 rebounds a game. He's gonna be passing the ball out. He's not gonna be looking to shoot, which I'm okay with. It doesn't have to be that way. But again, at this stage in his career, is he going to have enough of that killer instinct to want to prove something? And I don't want that question mark. I don't want that question mark in any of my players.
I'm going to raise a point in a minute. I'm going to give James a chance to answer this. So, who would you choose, James? You have Draymond Green. You have Jeremy Grant, and you have now I'm blanking on the last
Cam Johnson.
Cameron Johnson. Yeah. Who would you pick?
Well, I know Draymond Green. I can just tell you right now. I don't think the Sixers will pay an arm and a leg to get him because I think he's just too much of a head case, and I think he's just too much of a. I think just his presence won't fit the Philadelphia mantra here. But everyone will tell me, well, it's Philly tough. But I'm thinking, well, not necessarily, not technically. Before we go any further, Damon checks in for the first time today. Here we go. What's up, Damon?
Good morning, Big Al.
Good
Yeah,
morning, Damon.
What's going on, buddy?
Good morning, James. Good morning, Joe.
Damon must have heard one of my takes. Said, "Oh, I got to jump on this and yell at him."
Yeah. Sorry, guys. Good morning. How's everybody doing? Happy Saturday.
Good.
Good morning, Damon. We are putting on our GM hat today. You are going to do your best Howie Roseman impersonation today.
Shut the door.
Oh, why? Because of Hopkins?
No. Because we're trying to figure out the best ways to kind of improve some teams. We're starting with the Sixers. We named a couple names. Now that you've jumped on, I'll go to the next 3. Now I'm going to name 3 guys. Go ahead, James.
I'm sorry for interrupting, but before I think the one thing I'll just say about this, I'll just bring in Jeremy Grant because I think he'll be better said than done. I think towards the tanking years, he wasn't as a powerful facilitator, obviously, but I think now I think probably when he comes back, I think Jeremy Grant will be a good fit here. So I think I'll be okay with that. Sorry, Damon, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No problem.
No, you're fine. You're fine, man. No, you're fine.
So, Dame, I'm going to name 3 players, and you can choose to pick one, not pick one, but you can only pick one. So, And we're playing this not like, well, how are you going to afford it? We're taking the premise that Harden is going to be gone, and the possibility of Tobias Harris, getting traded. So the idea that with both those moves happening, you would free up money for a max contract. So the next three that I have are Jordan Poole, Josh Hart, and Nikola Jokic. I'll start. I kind of, I know I'm a Temple guy, and I know I love the cherry and the white, and I will wave the flag till I'm blue in the face. But I gotta go with the Nova guy again. I gotta go with Josh Hart. You gotta have Hart. If you gotta bring Hart to the city of Philadelphia, you might as well be very literal with it and bring Josh Hart here. I have been a Josh Hart fan since Nova. I've been a Josh Hart, DiVincenzo, and Jalen Brunson fan for a while. And I feel like Josh Hart can do a lot of interesting things for you. Now, this is close because Poole intrigues me because he's a versatile wing. But I'm still going to go with the hometown boy that he can come here. And again, just like I said with DiVincenzo, he can revitalize. He can bring some of that heart, that passion to this city again, because I think we need that a little bit. We need a shot of adrenaline. Dame, I'll start with you. Josh Hart, Jordan Poole, or Nikola Jokic? Who would you choose?
I would definitely take Josh Hart, but I have to counter that with this. I would. You check all the boxes of things you said. He's actually a younger version of PJ Tucker, but a little bit more polished offensively. The problem would be, and I know you said without the money and everything, that would be the problem. But no, I would welcome him. I would definitely welcome him. I think he brings good defense, grit. He's a hard worker. He can get you some buckets. When I mean, when I'm talking about, when I compare him to PJ, this is intensity. Just watching him from Villanova. And I know he bounced around a few teams in the NBA, and he seemed like he may have found a home with the Knicks. So, yeah, I would definitely, that would definitely be my foot. The thing about Poole, I like him offensively, but his defense is really not there, and the Sixers need some defense, especially in that wing position. And it was Nikolai. Who was the other one?
Nikola Jokic, Josh Hart, and
you mean Jokic? Would you bring Jokic here? That Jokic. I mean, he's a great player, man.
Yeah, the other Jokic, not the Joker. The other.
Oh, not the Joker. Oh, the other. I'm like, wait a minute. No, I would definitely take
the guy from the Bull, Nikolai.
Oh, I know you're talking about. Yeah. Oh,
you mean Vucevic? Vucevic.
Oh, I was going to say Nikolai. I'm like, this shouldn't be such a hard thing. Which one are you talking about?
Vucevic.
Yeah, Vucevic. Former Sixer Vucevic. Yeah, wow.
Yeah.
I've always liked him. I never understood why Doug Collins never played him. Depends, man. Yeah, I mean, that's not a bad choice. What, to be backup center?
Well, you have to pick one.
He's a starter.
So which one would you pick?
Poole, I would take Hart. I would go Hart.
All right. Al?
Yeah. Poole. Going Poole on this one.
Okay. James, who would you pick?
I gotta go with Josh Hart. I mean, the one thing I like about those Villanova players, they have a killer instinct. I mean, obviously Brunson's doing very well with the Knicks, and like we talked about earlier with DiVincenzo. Yeah, you know what? I'll go. I mean, Daryl Morey will probably want to make it the Philadelphia Rockets. I'm going to make it the Philadelphia Wildcats. So,
yeah, do you know what? And here's my part with Hart, and I do like Hart, and I agree with your guys' takes for the most part on this. But he's not going to get you a ton of points.
Right.
He brings more heart. Take that for what you want. Well, Jordan, go ahead.
No, I'm saying like I would rather take him than like somebody who's another heart in this town that don't know how to be more of a liability as another another team that I don't want to mention, but it's all good.
I mean, put it this way: Josh Hart's Josh Hart. Josh Hart's Josh Hart in the regular season as he is in the postseason. I mean, the stats are going to be about the same: 9 to 10 points per game. It doesn't matter. Poole, on the other hand, he can get you 20 points in the amount of time that Josh Hart can get you 10 points. And I don't think he is a scrappy kind of player. You're going to get that from him. I think Hart might be a little more scrappier, more of a fighter. And again, I think it's our Philly glasses taking them off now and then. And I said this before. There's a lot of Villanova guys, and I mean, I wouldn't be against Jay Wright being our coach at this point. Can it translate will always be the question.
Yeah.
But if I'm looking for a guy who's going to come off, who could either start or come off the bench and give you numbers, I think Jordan Poole, out of that pool of people, is your best deep end to dive into. Enough Poole references.
Right.
Hey, you got a lot of puns today, Al.
Yeah, I know. I'm on a family vacation, so I got dad jokes coming out the wazoo here, man.
Yeah. So we're going to get to the top of this, and this next triplets are going to be very interesting. You're going to have Fred VanVleet, Brooke Lopez, and Kristaps Porzingis. Dame, I'll start with you. The unicorn, as claimed by LeBron James, Brooke Lopez, who's been a thorn in our side for years, or why am I blanking on it? Oh, Fred VanVleet, who's also been a thorn in our side, especially in that quadruple doink series.
Yeah, Fred VanVleet is good, but he doesn't move me. Porzingis has gotten better and more healthier since he's been with. I would take Brooke Lopez. I like Brooke Lopez, actually. He was more of an inside player with the Nets, and now he stretched his game out. He's a good defender. He's solid. I like Brooke Lopez.
James?
Just never understood why he and his brother were so tall, but when they're on defense, they crouch over. Like, that bothers me. It's like they're cutting half of their height off. Half of their body off.
That's the coach
That
in
always
you.
bothered me.
That is the coach in you speaking right now.
It actually annoys me when I see him do it. Both he and his brother.
That's you from the sidelines yelling, "Stand up! Stand up!"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yes. Stand up at attention,
James?
soldier.
Man. These are really good names, Joe. I got to admit.
Yeah, they are good names.
Man, Porzingis is. I mean, he did very well. He's still with the Knicks, right? I mean, he was still with the Knicks last year, right? If I remember correctly. I think I gotta go with
the trade.
I gotta go with VanVleet.
Okay.
Because because you told me about that quadruple doink, and I'm like, you know what? That's the only thing I want to do is I want that little menace. I want that little menace on our team.
I'm sorry to bring up a sore memory. I'm sorry, Al.
Hey, it's all good.
We have a lot of them. Why don't you add salt to the moon?
I like Damon's take, but my problem with Lopez, I feel like and I made this mistake in the past too. I think he's like another Al Horford in my eyes. Couldn't beat him. He when we played against him, he was always a thorn in our side. I guarantee you put him in a Sixers uniform, he's going to come up small. Like, you know what I mean? So I like Fred VanVleet. If you watched any of the play-in tournament, he was huge for them. I mean, he averaged 12 rebounds a game. I mean, for that, I mean, like, he had some big games and big time moments. Now, in my eyes, the Raptors were the Raptors. Once Kawhi Leonard left, I mean, let's be honest, Leonard won Toronto a championship. It wasn't Toronto won a championship. Once he left, and you weren't really left with a cast of all-stars, but with Nick Nurse and putting the right guys in the right spots. And let's be honest, it smells like Nick Nurse is most likely going to be the coach of the Sixers next.
Yep.
That's
In
what
my
you're
eyes,
smelling?
that's what I'm smelling. That's not. I don't know if that's what I want, but that's what I'm smelling. I mean,
Right.
overall, we talked about this on Wednesday to nauseum. Who I want versus who I think is going to happen.
Yeah.
But I mean, they recently had a winning pedigree. A winning pedigree. They know what it takes. I think Fred VanVleet could be the way of adding a superstar to this team, or a star, maybe not a superstar, but a star to this team. And he's going to get you points. He can come up big in moments. And again, going back to what I've always said, we got to kind of look past the numbers, got to look past the stats, and look at the guy himself, and look at if that killer instinct is in him. Because there's certain guys you can kind of see it right away. There's certain guys, who play well against us, kind of like Brook Lopez, but will they play well with us? That's remaining to be seen. And Van Vliet can fall into that category as well, but I think there's higher upside with him. I think if you're looking from a GM standpoint, Brook Lopez is probably a little bit better because you can financially fit him into the puzzle a little better. But I honestly don't think it's going to be gigantically different. So if you're going to reach for the stars and you're going to try to compete this year, I think Van Vliet is going to be your best option out of the three that you mentioned. And guys, real quick, go ahead, real quick, Dave. I'll let you say what you say, but after this, I'm gonna have to skedaddle. All right.
All right, real quick, Al. So off of that, one, do you know how tall Van Vliet is? And also, let's say Nurse does get hired and they wind up bringing him in, he would know how to use him, correct? He would know how to put him in that,
He and that's the other thing is there's a good chance if you hire a guy like that, they're gonna bring one of their guys in. But yeah, he's gonna know how to use him better than anybody. I mean, that's the skinny. I mean, he's only like 29 years old, so he's kind of in the prime of his life. So why not, right?
Yeah, good. Yeah. We'll see.
Well,
right.
Al, enjoy your vacation.
Yeah, I'll enjoy it, man.
One of the things that I'll add to what's being said, Al makes some really great points about Van Vliet, and Van Vliet, out of all of them, I was a big fan of Porzingis at one point in time, but I just feel like he's become the Sean Bradley equivalent of nowadays.
That's a good take.
I feel like he's big and he's got a presence, but his skill set is much to be desired. Like his ceiling was high, but the floor dropped out from underneath him. So I feel like Van Vliet can come here and do many, many things. We talked about this earlier in regards to I believe it was Josh Hart or D'Angelo Russell. He's a guy who's a guard that can do many things. Al brought up rebounding, but he's also a good distributor. He's also a good points guy. He can fill it up. We know that from personal experience. He can get hot from the 3-point line, which we like. You put this guy where he's not ball dominant, but he's smart. He's very smart with how he goes about his job and how to distribute and how to be the quarterback on that floor. I think Fred VanVleet, especially if they wind up hiring Nick Nurse, and I think Nick Nurse would be a good selection. I'm not entirely sure who I'm sold on yet. I know there's been a lot of talk about Budenholzer and Nick Nurse, and I know the fantasy people want Jay Wright to come here. I get it. What we need is a person that not only is going to change the message in the locker room, but can turn the stars' heads in an instant. Like Charlie Manuel commanded the locker room, the clubhouse, because he could say something to J. Roll, Chase, and Ryan, and he could get their attention. He wasn't just saying complacent things in the clubhouse. He was saying things that could garner attention from the superstars. And that's what whatever coach comes in needs to do. The next and final thing that we talk about with the Sixers, it really is about two guys. One you have, one you don't. So as Al said in one of the triplets, is it the devil you know or the devil you don't know that you want to deal with? If you deal with either Kyrie Irving or
Oh
bringing
God.
back James Harden, Damon, who, if any, would you choose? Do you choose neither? Do you choose one or the other?
I'm neither.
Neither.
I'm neither. One, I James Harden, when he came here, let me say this, changed my mind about him. I think he distributed the ball way more than what I thought he ever would. Did a lot in a small amount of time that he was here. But there were times in the game when I kept saying, "Move the ball, James. Just move the ball." Just like like almost every game. And what bothered me about Game 6. So I go back to Game 5, Game 4 when he drops 42, going overtime, we win. Game 5 in Boston, he distributes the ball nicely. Everybody gets involved. He's involved. Game 6, he reverts, and it's like, dude, we just needed you to be the point guard. I'm not putting it all on him, but a lot of it is on him because he had the ball in his hand, and nothing happened, nothing transpired. With that being said, and I'm not giving you $200 million at 33, 34 years old. We just can't do that.
Right.
And so move on from that. Kyrie Irving, dynamite player. But Leg said it better on Cuz show, said it best. Hey man, the first few months is dynamite. Oh man, we figured it out, Kyrie, and I'm paraphrasing. This guy is just force. And then somebody, Philly media will say something or something, and then he goes left, and then I don't need that, man. I need some guys that's going to come in, do their job. You guys are kind of selling me on Fred VanVleet. My only concern is he's 6 feet and Maxi's 6'2". That's a small backcourt, and they're both not the best defenders. But I don't know. Yeah, but I'm neither, Joe, on that.
James, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree with Dave on this part too. Is because like the thing about what Harden that really astounds me about what happened is that, like you said, like Game 1 basically took the game, shocked the Boston crowd. After the night before they lost, like the Bruins lost Game 7 to Florida. But then the one thing I have to say about Harden is that there was one thing that really surprised me with it is that I still trying to wrap my head about how poorly he played in Game 6 and in Game 7 was unacceptable on my part. That if he wanted to come back here, it's not because that we wanted him back. It's because who's running the show. And I think who's running the show is the reason why that he hasn't shipped off and shaped out yet. So I think the hardest thing about it too is that if you bring in Kyrie Irving, that's not going to be good either. Because when you bring in Kyrie Irving, by the way, the Mavericks were in the playoffs before he came in, and they didn't make the playoffs. So that could be another thorn in the side too. So to me, it's either. Neither one I would bring in or bring back actually.
So
let me just hold on. Let me just pick it back off of James real quick. James, excellent points you make about Kyrie.
Yeah.
The other thing is, need guys coming in. This includes Jimmy Butler, who was running things.
Right.
I don't. Harden. I don't need guys. I need guys that's going to. We need a culture. We need guys that's going to fall in so we can win, man. We can win. That's it. I don't need nobody telling me I'm sacrificing it. Yeah, sacrifice to win. That's it. That's it.
Amen.
So
sorry, Joe.
I'm going to be in lockstep with you guys about neither, and there's really a couple main reasons. After Game 7, and Harden only scored 9 points, and I come on this airway, 9 points, and I come on this airway, and we're all mourning, we're all upset, we're all our voices and our body language says it all. and you could have listened to Philly sports talk radio that whole week, and it would have been the same tone from one fan to the next. But James Harden, his tone and his voice in the press conference in the post game of Game 7 told me all I needed to know. That he didn't care. That he considered it a bad game. Really? You think? Thank you, Captain Obvious. But go back to the strip club. If you can count $100 bills, maybe you should count the points that you scored and the points that you didn't score. We brought you here for a reason. We brought you here, and you kept preaching. You kept saying we're going to do it, and we got the players, and you're making jokes at the podium with Joel and some post games, acting like everything's well in hand. No, you haven't won anything yet. You don't get to have that cachet yet. And I'll be honest, like, you haven't moved the needle for me enough that I feel like, hey, I need to bring him back for a max deal. No. You want to go to Houston? Go with God. Because I'm done trying to bang my head against the wall, trying to make sense of your idiocy that not only happens off the court, but I always say this. I don't care what some people do off the court. Your business is your business. But when you're on the court and I'm paying for a ticket, you're on my dime, which means I expect things from you. And when you come up short, I'm going to call you to the floor. Yeah, I am. And James, I'm called you to the floor, and guess what? You're out. With Kyrie, I've said this for years. I go back to the early years of Pattison Ave Phanatics when he was on the Boston Celtics. And it was him and Tatum and all these, like,
Rozier
Jaylen
too,
Brown.
right?
Jaylen Brown. He was there with them.
Jaylen Brown, Hayward, but before he got hurt.
Oh wow!
So
yeah.
I remember
That was a good
hearing
team.
from
Yeah.
Tom and Will. Oh, they're a championship team. They're a championship team, and I'm like, how? And they're like, well, they got Kyrie. They got and I'm like, okay, but correct me if I'm wrong. Did Kyrie win a championship in Cleveland before LeBron James came back or after LeBron James came back? And who really won that title? LeBron or Kyrie? And I'm like, it wasn't even all LeBron. Like, there was a lot of role players in that too. So I'm like,
Well, Kyrie hit the
right.
big basket to give him that game that put them up.
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, but to your point, not to cut you off, he's not a guy that's going to carry a team. He needs somebody really good. Yeah,
Right.
I know. We know what he is. We know what he is.
He's not going to move the needle any further, any more than a James Harden. I mean, if I'm going to go with a guy who's like, well, I think he's a superstar and I think he's going to be a future Hall of Famer, then I'm going to keep the devil I do know, even though I don't want to keep the devil I do know. But I'm not going to move on to a guy who's going to be like showing up half the time and give half the energy. I'd rather get someone in there. And that's why I say, like, go back to like guys like D'Angelo Russell and Josh Hart and DiVincenzo. Is these guys have motivation. These guys have heart and willingness. Sometimes you don't need, and this is something I'm going to put out there for everyone to kind of understand. I really thought about this this past week. In the NBA, people are like, you need a big three. Do you? How many teams that have had a big three outside of the Golden State Warriors when they had Kevin Durant? How many teams that had a big three won a championship in the last 10 years, 10, 15 years? Not many. Some only had
Miami,
two prime
Golden
players.
State.
Miami, but Miami had who? Bosh, Dwayne Wade, and LeBron James. Okay, I can understand that, but I don't know if I call Bosch a big three.
No, but that was
I think,
considered the first. But that was
yeah,
considered the first big three because Bosch was the leading scorer with the Raptors, and then he brought.
right.
When LeBron goes to Miami, remember he brings Bosch over. So Bosch sacrificed, but he
Yeah.
was no, and he was an all-star with the Raptors. No, that was a
Yeah.
big three, Joe.
Yeah,
No, but see,
I mean, that
here-
team
That was
was
a big
very
three.
fun to watch. That they were very
here's
fun
my
to watch.
feeling.
But then they had hold up. But then they got role players. Hold up, pause. They got Ray Allen coming off the
Yeah.
bench.
Ray Allen,
So
Mike
this
Miller,
is where
Chris
this is
Anderson.
where I'm-
They had somebody
Birdman.
else too. They had somebody
Th-
else. it's
this
coming
is
to
where
mind.
I'm
But yeah,
going
they had a
Udonis
squad,
Haslam.
man.
Udonis Haslam
Yeah,
too.
Haslam, a young Haslam. Yeah, they had a couple.
Yep.
Guys,
this is
man.
where I'm going with this point. Is that sometimes I think it's better to have 2 stars and a really bunch of quality players. I'm not talking about like the Shake Miltons and the George Niangs. I'm talking
Right.
about like the Brogdons and the Lewis Williams and like those guys that can come off the bench or even potentially start. Like I look at like what we did with DeAnthony Melton. That guy, we expected a good bench guy. We expected a sixth man. But man, could he plug and play in the starting rotation? Why not bring more people like that and have like a continuous rotation of depth? Not saying they all have to be guards, but guys that can play very versatilely. That way you can give guys like Maxi. I mean, let's be clear. The 2 stars of this team going forward are going to be Maxi and Embiid. That is just the clear-cut statement. Tobias, his future is unknown. James Harden, his bags are on the Greyhound bus on the way out. I'm not convinced that this team doesn't have a core that can be built around. They do. It's just a matter of doing it with the right pieces.
Joe, I am so, and I mean it's so with. Listen, I'm okay. I shared this with you guys before, and I know everybody's on him with the contract. Tobias Harris, I'm telling you, man, if they're going to get something for him, they're going to get something for him. But I wouldn't be so quick to pull that trigger. If you can get a coach, I go back to Game 6 when the ball wasn't moving, and this is what got me about Doc. And I'm like, dude, you know basketball way more than me and Chinese arithmetic. Like you when that. And he's done it. He had the ball in Tobias's hands at times throughout the season. Point forward. What it does is it gets Joe moving, it gets Maxi moving, it even gets Hard moving because it's putting his man on him at the top of the key, and it gets the ball moving. You can use him like that. Now that gets him more involved, so he's not giving you 2 points because the ball is in his hands, especially when Harden was holding it up. The other thing about him that I like is that he's available. He's available. He's rarely injured. And I know people are upset about the contract. I personally got over that 3 years ago because it's starters' money. It's, and he's had to change his role. And then when he has a bad game, it's magnified. Oh, my God, Tobias, see his contract. When I was at Game 4, I heard somebody say he makes a lot of money. But, fine, whatever. But when you talk about a guy that can do some things, man, those guys are hard to find. So I think when people go, let's move to Tobias, I get it. No, I just hope if they do, get some value. That's my point. If you're going to move him, don't just move him for the sake of getting rid of the money. You better bring in 2 young guys that are just as good, if not better. Because I'm telling you, he's going to be missed way more than people realize. I'm telling you, he's going to be missed way more than people realize if and when it does happen.
Let me be clear. So when I say Tobias, and I get your points, Dame, but here's my thing. I'm not even focused on the money. The contract is subtext. It's like the sub message to everything at this point. What I would say is he hasn't moved the needle for me enough in his performances.
Gotcha.
And I'm not saying he hasn't had good games, but like if we place blame on James Harden and Joel Embiid for Game 6 and Game 7, why doesn't Tobias Harris share some of that blame too? He doesn't, even though I feel like he gets the axe on top of his neck first most of the time. I I just think I just think you know what you're going to get from Tobias. And you have to ask the question, is it enough?
But do
Is
you?
it enough of
But
a
I'm saying, but like when
supporting
you
role?
say that's a good question. It's like, but do you know, like okay, we've established the fact that he went from second to literally fourth option on
Yep.
offense.
Yep.
And that's tough, to hold up against a $36 million contract or $36 million he made this year, or whatever was going to make next year. That's tough to hold up because there's only so many touches. Now, is that an excuse? No, that's just the reality of it. Now, let's go back to Game 6 when he only scored 2 points. I go back to Doc Rivers. If you recall, in every post game, James, Doc would say during the playoffs, I got to get Maxey some touches. I got to get Maxey some touches. And it's like, well, dude, do it. Get him the touches. How do I get him touches?
Yep.
If I know that my starting point guard is not dishing the ball, I have to come up with another way. And so I'm thinking, why couldn't you have put the ball in Tobias's hands? You get him involved. When you're, to me, if you're coaching, and I have 4 guys at the top of my rotation who are all capable of leading teams and scoring, because Tobias did it one time, Harden did it. We know Joe does it, and Maxey could on a Charlotte or somebody. Maxey could be a leading scorer on another team, right? And so you have to find a way, because they're top heavy, to keep those guys engaged.
Yep.
You just do, and that's where coaching comes into play. So I'm hoping, if it's a Nurse, if it's the dude Quinn off of Miami's bench, because I said this even before they got Doc Rivers, maybe pick somebody from Miami's coaching staff to bring that culture in, to bring that winning culture in. And this guy Quinn, who's been with them 7 years, his name keeps coming up. So I don't know if they're waiting to see with this situation, but whoever they bring in, long as it's not D'Antoni, please establish a culture and really, because I don't think we're as far off as people think. I think when sometimes in playoff basketball, it's luck, it's skill, it's all that, but you need some coaching. You need some, fellas, we're at home. It's Game 6. Let's get this W. Boom. This is how we're running it. And if we lose that way, Joe, we lose that way. But we're not going to lose the way we did in both Games 6 and 7. That cannot happen. And that's why Doc Rivers is gone.
Here's
that's
the
why
thing.
he's
And
gone.
I'm going to point
Well
something
said.
out. I'm going to
Very
piggyback
well
off
said.
of what you were saying, Dame. And that is, okay, if Doc's sitting here saying I got to get Maxey more touches, okay, I go back in the day. Great coaches make great decisions, okay? Phil Jackson, if he knew that when he was coaching the Bulls or when he was coaching the Lakers, either or, he have a point guard. With the Lakers, it was Derek Fisher. With the Bulls, it was PJ Armstrong.
Armstrong,
Yep. So here's the thing. They would be walking up the court, and usually someone like Jordan or Kobe would be off ball. But if Phil said in the middle of a game, I need to get Kobe or Jordan more touches, he would say inbound the ball to Kobe, inbound the ball to Michael, put the ball in his hands, let him be the decision maker. That's how you get the ball in his hands. You don't sit there and wait for some other person to make that decision for you. You're the coach.
Right.
Last time I checked, you make the decisions.
Right.
So the fact that you don't put the ball in Maxey's hands to make those decisions, whether to take it or whether to dish it or whether to be the quarterback for that possession, that's called being a good coach. Listen, this is where I part ways with Doc Rivers. His in-game strategy was flawed, not by a little, by a lot. I think there needs to be a coach that can think for themselves on the fly. And
Yeah, I agree.
I'll be honest with
I
you.
agree. Especially with this team. Especially with this team.
Yeah, and I'll be honest with you. You make a good point about Tobias going from 2 to 4. I get that. But when your number 1 and number 2 options are not playing well, even if you're 3 or 4, you need to step up not for them, but for
Absolutely.
your team. And I'm
Absolutely.
reminiscent
I agree.
if we're talking about like past teams. You brought up the Heat. The 4th option was Ray Allen. There was a game in that playoff run to the NBA Finals that the Heat needed to lean on Ray Allen. Ray Allen had a 30-point game. You had James Johnson, who had a 25-point game. Like, these guys, they're not the number 1, number 2, or number 3 option. But they stepped up in the moment. Tobias did not. And has not. And this isn't the first playoff situation he's not done it. That's why I say, Dame, like, I've seen enough. I'm not saying I'm giving up on him.
Last year's his playoffs was pretty good. This year's his playoffs was pretty decent for the most part, except for that one game. I think he was D'ing up Tatum to Tatum. Yeah, that whole listen. The thing about that too with Doc Rivers, as a coach, to me, you got to have your team ready, man. There's no way. I'm sorry. I'll say it. If I was coaching that game 6, they wouldn't have lost. We're not losing. Because I'm gonna have you ready. It's game 6. We're at the crib. We're home. We can close this team out when nobody had us favored. There's no way. If nothing else, as the ego that all these players have should come out like, you're not tonight, Boston. We're putting you away. We're gonna put you away early. That's all they had to do, man. And that's why, for me, it's so unsettling. It's hard to watch. Shout out to Florida on your way to the NHL. You know what I'm saying? Stanley Cup. I mean, you know what I mean? I do got something. I've been watching hockey playoffs, man, but it's hard, man. I really feel like this. I felt like there was a team that at least get to the finals. I'll take this with me, man. It's something missing. You were up 3-2 at home.
So
and they couldn't get the job done. Nope.
So this is the Sixers is kind of gone on. So what we'll do is save the Flyers GM talk for next week. And so what we'll do though is to end with the end Sixers.
Good morning.
What I would ask, and I'm curious about, is Daryl Morey the right GM to do the job for this team? Like, I question some of Daryl's choices.
I gotta admit, the hardest thing about what happened with the Sixers team is that I was trying to listen to his post-game presser about like what went wrong, and I feel like it's just like I feel like it's like when Embiid was like in a quote of what Donovan McNabb would say at the end of the championship game when he said, "We showed our youth today." That's bad. I'm sorry. It's just bad because I don't understand how you. I mean, it's hard. Like even like you just said, Dame. Like you're up 3-2. You had home court advantage. You could have easily took this game and basically just go at their neck. And now the hardest thing about that too is that like Boston now could easily make this a series tonight again, or was it tomorrow? Is it tonight?
Tonight.
Yeah, they can make it a series against Boston, and everybody's going to say, well, we could have beat Boston, but Miami could. And by the way, Miami's an AFC too, same with the Panthers. But the hardest thing about it too is that, I mean, I gotta be 100% honest here. I don't think the Sixers, if they would have gone to the conference finals, if they beat Boston, Jimmy Butler is going to be Jimmy Butler. Okay, that's the thing I take out of it too, and him not being here is one of the reasons why, like I said last week, is that that's the reason why we lost that game, is because like if we had Jimmy Butler, he would be having that killer instinct and saying, you're not gonna take that away from me. And the reason why he shipped out is because the other guy that didn't know how to shoot. And the reason on the other, and he said it back in the day too, he's like, Tobias Harris over me? Yeah, if it were me, I'd be like, yeah, I'll take that personal too. And now, thanks to two teams in Florida, Bobrovsky, that used to be a Flyer, and Jimmy Butler with the Sixers, now we're standing on our doorsteps waiting for Memorial Day to come around and have barbecue and stuff. But the only thing we're doing is just that it's going to be a real pain to see two Florida teams, not just Florida teams, but two teams that used to be a part of the Philadelphia franchise that could. I mean, but back to the Daryl Morey thing. I didn't mean to go on my Shapiro about it. But
fine. It's fine.
But it's just like it's gonna be a, like in the words of Kenny Chesney would say, it's gonna be a bitch and a bummer.
Yeah, and listen, but before Dame, I'll get your take on it. What you got to kind of you made some really valid points there, James. Is that we always I think throughout the season we talked about, well, where are the Sixers going to end in their seeding?
Yeah,
and we always worried about seeding. And now look at like where the Heat are. They're on the doorstep of going to the NBA Finals. Like, and they were in the play-in tournament, and they almost missed the play-in tournament. They had to win 2 out of the last 3 games at the end of the season to stay in the play-in tournament.
Mm-hmm.
So they almost didn't even make the play-in. And so, you got to keep something in mind. Yes, Jimmy Butler is the girl that got away, but and Bobrovsky, well, he's the guy that I don't. That's not even just a head scratcher. That's like I need a bottle of whiskey.
It's a tailspin.
That's like me needing a bottle of whiskey to do the show in order to explain to you the idiocy that went into losing him. But Dame, what do you think turning the ship around? Because see, I feel like I've listened to Sports Talk this week, and there's more and more people that are jumping ship off of this team saying, blow it up. Blow it up. I'm done with it. And then there are some people that feel like Daryl Morey is ultimately responsible. If you blow it up, which I don't suggest, or if Daryl Morey can reshuffle the deck, is he the man for the job?
Well, you have to look at a few things. You have to look at where they ended the season. They ended the season in the Game 7 in the semi-conference finals, right? Against a team that's favored to win it all. So you have to look at it from that aspect. Starting, were they swept? No. Should they have won? Yeah, but they didn't. That's the reality.
Yep.
Here we lie, May 27th. They did not win, and we're figuring out what to do. So is he the person? You have to let him finish it out because he added a Melton, he added a Tucker, which helped. But I think his biggest challenge, and we'll find out in about 4 or 5 weeks, whether or not he resigns Harden at any rate.
Right.
And so if he doesn't, that shows me a lot. And if he does, that shows me a lot. What I mean by that is if he does, okay, he believes in Harden a lot more than we do. And that will concern me. If he doesn't, to me, it's like he's seeing something that he's like, you know what, let me move away from this to make the team better. And it also depends on who they bring in as the coach. So in that regards, I feel good about him making that decision. I know it wasn't easy firing Doc Rivers because they have a relationship, but that right there, because you could have easily said, well, you know what, want to give Doc a shot. They went Game 7, and they could have went that route, but they didn't. He's like, you know what, let's move on. And so, to me, it's a couple of things where like, and I'm just realizing this. I think that they believe they're closer than not. And sometimes others may not see it, right? Sometimes people don't see what you see, because I'd agree with you, Joe. There's blowing it up. What is that going to do? But frustrate you more, set you back another 5 or 6 years. Really, it is. So
Yeah.
True.
you have an
People-
MVP. Yeah, you got an
People
up and
think
coming.
that trading Embiid is the way to not wait 5 or 6 years, and I
But
disagree.
you're going to lose. You're going to lose on
Yeah.
that trade all day long.
Yeah,
because you're talking about guys. Listen, okay, hypothetically, you traded Embiid and you get a high draft pick. Oh, we can get another Ben Simmons, a Zion Williamson. Do you want to go through that again? No, I don't think so.
No.
Say what you want about Joe. Hey man, he works through it. He works through it, and to me, he's only gonna get better and figure it out with the right coach, with the right things around. Yeah.
Let me be clear. In 10 years, the Sixers drafted during the process years. In 10 years, they drafted in the top 5, 4, 5, 6, 4, 5, or 6 years of that 10-year span of the process.
Wow,
You're talking about
5,
Melchal Fultz, Jahlil Okafor, Joel Embiid, Ben Simmons, Nerlens Noel.
Wow.
These guys, Evan Turner. Like you're talking about these guys.
Yeah.
And so do I want to trade Joel Embiid for a potential Markelle Fultz, Evan Turner, Jahlil Okafor kind of guy, Ben Simmons kind of guy? No, not at all. And I don't think you're going to merit. Look, here's the only trade that I am willing to do for Joel Embiid. But it would never happen. It would never happen.
What was the trade? I couldn't hear you. Broke up. What was the trade you proposed?
It would never happen. It would never happen.
What was the trade? Oh, I'm sorry.
So, no GM is ever going to trade a superstar. No GM is going to trade it's one in the hand, two in the bush kind of thing.
Well, listen.
So
hang on. How many years did it take Dirk Nowitzki?
A lot. But here's what I'm getting at. Would I take a Doncic for Joel Embiid? Absolutely. Would I take a Giannis? Absolutely. Would I take a Job Morant? Absolutely.
No.
What I
no,
what they,
no, don't go there,
what
man.
We're talking about. Don't go there, man. Joe, you just said yourself an hour ago you don't care about the off court, you care about the on court. But with that kid, you're going to miss games. He's going to miss games.
Yeah.
With that.
Oh yeah.
Here's my feeling though. My point of that whole thing, regardless, is you're not going to get a GM worth their weight in gold is not going to trade another superstar for a superstar. Like they're just not. They're like people who are like, well, LeBron could come here. For what? Why?
Well,
what would he come here for?
Well, wait a second.
For the cheese
but wait a second though. Couple things. Here's what I say. It's my buddy said this to me a year ago. It's easier to find a job when you have a job. I agree. I equate that with Joe. I know what I have with this dude. I know we lost. I know you're frustrated, but I know I'm going to at least get 50+ games with this dude. And at the very freaking least, and we're going to figure it out, I'm going to be in position. But let's go back to your boy LeBron. Joe, I heard that this week. And I know I got a better shot, James, of going around the corner and buying a $20 lottery ticket and hitting $1 million today. I got a better shot of that than LeBron coming. But
I want 1% if you do. If you do, I want 1%.
You'll get 2. You'll get 2. I'll say this, man. Boy, I started thinking about that and would if and could if, and I would do it. I would do it in the last hour. We would get over the hump. Even at 38, 39.
Here's
and
my
he wouldn't
point of view.
He wouldn't hog the ball.
Well,
for the record, not to cut you off real quick, had Joel not gotten hurt, James, Joel would have been a Cavalier with LeBron instead of Wiggins.
True.
Wow.
True.
Wow. You're right about that.
It's a very valid point. We're going to switch. we're gonna switch gears. We're gonna switch gears to
Good Sixers talk.
the Dave Dombrowski role of our segment of our show. But before we do, I still want everybody to chime in with what you think about the Sixers and what they should do on the message board.
Thank you.
But before we get to the Phillies, James, we have some really awesome trips coming up to Chicago for
Yes,
your
sir.
Philadelphia Phillies.
Yep. It's obviously it's PhillySportsTrips.com. This is the ultimate Chicago trip to Wrigley Field. That's June 28th to June the 1st of 2000. Of obviously this year we're in 2023. Hello. That means that it is the ultimate bus trip to Chicago. That again, like I said, it is the week of June 28th to July the 1st, and be also checking out PhillySportsTrips.com for all the Eagles, Sixers, Flyers, and even Philly stuff, as all the PhillySportsTrips.com. You can visit our website at www.PhillySportsTrips.com and tell them that the boys over at Pattison Ave and EOP sent you.
So you get all 3 games? You get all 3 games with that trip?
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yep.
That's
the
nice.
ultimate Chicago trip. And
Yep.
let me explain something from a guy who's been to Wrigley. When I had sight and I went to Wrigley, me and my wife went a couple years ago. We had a wedding in Chicago for my wife's cousin, and we went to Wrigley. The reason why Wrigley stands out to me, I'm a nostalgic historian, especially within the history of sports. I love the old Polo Grounds looking stadiums. I just love the feel, the way that the game feels closer and the way that the game feels more authentic. If you want to experience that, go to phillysportstrips.com, book that ultimate Chicago trip. You will not go wrong, believe me.
Totally
But
worth it.
to dive into the Phillies, especially in the GM role, I first want to start before we get into that. Ironic thing, turn of events last night. The Phillies pulled off a victory with the Braves, and now they go into today's game trying to go 2-1 in this 4-game series. You got 10 games, including the last 2 games, with the NL East division. This is a big 10-game stretch in my mind. But last night, Craig Kimbrell got his 400th career save. He becomes the 8th player in history to have that. And he did it in the city and against the team that drafted him in the Atlanta Braves. And the irony in all of that, he debuted against the Phillies back in 2010. And his first strikeout was against Raul Ibanez. So it's amazing how things come around full circle. And it's amazing, honestly. When Dave was on the show, he told me a year or so ago, I would love to get Craig Kimbrell. And I'm like, there's no way we get Craig Kimbrell. I'm so glad that Dombrowski made it happen. If we're talking about GM for a day today, some of the moves that Dombrowski has made for this team, especially how the Phillies have been scuffling, it makes it clear that there is like small moves and large moves that have impact on the bigger picture for this team and the success that they have going forward. So congratulations, first of all, to Craig Kimbrell on his 400th save. Number 2, you have rumors going on around. We're gonna in the next month or so, we're gonna be really stoking up that hot stove action with possible trade offers and possible whether the Phillies will be buyers or sellers for Aaron Nola. Aaron Nola is going to be a free agent at the end of this season, and he's garnering the possibilities of 200 or 200 plus $1 million contract. Now, that's surprising to me because I believe Jacob deGrom just got less than 200 million, and I think deGrom has more in the tank than Nola does. That's just my personal opinion, and he went to I believe it was the Rangers. deGrom did.
Yep.
So
Yep.
you have to keep in mind that $200 million on this roster is a tough take. So there is a possibility, strong possibility, that they could deal Nola. Dame, I'll start with you. I ask this: is there a chance that Dabrowski moves Nola? And if they do, if he does, what position, not player, but position, would you want to bring in?
Good question. So if you recall, I believe beginning of the season, I raised that hypothetical that if Nola, depending on where the Phillies were in the standings, and if Nola, how he was performing, would you make the move? And so far we're under 500. The other day they gave him they gave him 5 runs. Like, they rarely hit for him, and they gave him 5 runs.
Yeah,
and unfortunately he couldn't finish. Joe, you know how this goes. We're talking, right? Meaning, and I'm doing in quotes with my hands, Joe, like meaning like, of course they're in conversation, but they're not. All right. So to answer your question more specifically, if it was to happen, I'm not going to be surprised. Would I do it? I'm a Nola fan, you guys know that, but I am disappointed in him because at times I'm like, dude, you have an 0-2 count. Stop nibbling. Just throw your stuff. Put the ball in play. Let your defense I would if they couldn't get, and the only reason because Taijuan Walker can move up into that number 2 slot. I think he could be your number 2. Painter's coming back. You have some youth. You can make the move. I see you frowning, Joe, but I would go for a first baseman. I would try to get a young first baseman, even if it was somebody who was in double or triple A that was on the brink of coming up, kind of like a Marsh, even though Marsh was already up with Anaheim, but kind of on like, yo, we have this kid that's coming up. He's nice. Boom. I would look at a first baseman and always an outfielder. Those would be my 2 primary positions in terms of trying to get someone for him. But I think it's like 65-35 chance of it happening.
So to kind of chime in with what you're saying about Marsh was a starter. He was on the big club in Anaheim.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He was up in Anaheim. I know he was up. Yeah.
But the problem was you have Mike Trout in front of you. Like that's kind of a big deal. Like he's not going to get the start over Mike Trout. But James, what do you think? Does Nola get dealt before the trade deadline or by the trade deadline? And if so, what position would you try and pick up for Nola?
I would say there's a possibility that he might be gone by the trade deadline, but when you get back, it's gonna be it's gonna be a little bit up in the air. The hardest thing about it too is that, like you said, like with Aaron Nola, is consistency. He's just been up and down with a lot of consistency. I mean, the nibbling stuff is just it's ridiculous. I mean, it's flat out ridiculous. But the position I would bring in if you want to trade Nola, I guess you got to go with probably. I think first baseman would be 2, because I mean, depending on what Reese, like, if he comes back next year, but hopefully he will come back, because this year he obviously his like injury has really hurt us in a deep way, and I think if you probably give him one more chance, I mean, like, probably like first baseman will be top priority if you can get Aaron Nola. Like, I don't know who's out there that's like in AAA or like or Double A rather, that is somebody's going to say, yeah, you know what, let's bring this guy in for Aaron Nola. So I probably have to do my research on that. But yeah, I agree with Damon. I definitely can look at first baseman for that part.
Or like Joe was alluding to, like I was saying, like somebody like a Marsh who's on the bench, like not getting, but has the ability to start every game. So that would be interesting.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, for sure.
Someone like Marsh, that because you have people that are on benches that the only reason why they can't play is because of the guy in front of them. It's a reality with most sports teams that there's talent, but it's like untapped talent.
Yeah.
So So
Although for the
one
record,
of the
Brad
things,
Hall, I think is starting to going to rehab soon. I believe I saw something. I
Derek
could be
Hall,
wrong.
yeah, Derek
I mean
Hall is going to
Derek
be
Hall. Excuse me.
Derek
There we
Hall is
go.
going to be rehabbing soon. Also, Christopher Sanchez might be making the trip
Okay.
up. So and then Alvarado's almost ready to come back. So we're going
That's
to
good to
have
hear.
a pretty decent bullpen. Um, with regards to Nola,
Mm-hmm.
number one, I've gone on record. I'm not paying him $200 million. I'm just not.
No.
So you're not going to
Um,
harden them either. So he and Harden aren't get the 200 million. Neither one of
no, because it kind of is the same reasoning.
them.
It's kind of the same reasoning too, Dame.
That's deep.
It's
Really.
it's the same reasoning. I've seen enough. Like
Yeah.
I've seen what I needed to see. I've evaluated him. There's nothing left that he can give me that would go, okay, I got to give you that money. Like I could tell you right now, if Bryce Harper, not that you could in baseball, but if Bryce Harper came to me as an owner and said, I want more money, I go, write a number down. Like whatever, like write a number down. Like
Right.
I'll pay you whatever you want. Like
Right.
that's not a question because I've also seen enough from him that he garners whatever he wants. I've seen enough from both Harden and Nola that I've seen enough. I don't and I haven't I've seen enough, but I haven't seen enough
Mm-hmm.
to garner me keeping it.
Mm-hmm.
I would trade Nola, but honestly, I would bring in more starting pitching depth.
Really?
Oh boy.
Yeah. Not necessarily old, but like I would bring in
Mm.
guys that I felt like could complement or best complement and bridge that gap from Wheeler to like a Painter, and an Abel and stuff like that because I feel like you have to start looking to that rotation to what the future holds. Wheeler can't do it forever. Noah's out. Walker is going to give you good innings, but he's no ace. And so for me, you're looking to the future. You're looking to the Ranger Suarez. You're looking to the Painter. You're looking to the Abel. You're looking to possibly the Bailey Falter. But you need to have more arms in that. You clearly have enough arms in the bullpen, and you will. But you need to have more viable arms in the starting rotation. You still had Strom come in and do a spot start. I go back to the Giants series. You can't have your starter, even if he's a spot starter, go less than an inning to start the game. That's just unacceptable.
You
And
know,
go ahead,
I'll
James.
let you finish. I'll let you finish.
So I mean, for me, I get that it's very rare to see like a GM trade a starting pitcher for another starting pitcher. But if I had to do a secondary thing, I'm still because I'm going to raise this question after this is that what other possible players outside of Aaron Nola are on the chopping block on the trade block, and one of them could be Castellanos. And I think if you trade Nola, you would get an outfielder that could be a better outfielder. And I'm not saying he has to be like a stout outfielder. It doesn't have to be a Mike Trout. It just has to be a guy that can field the ball and could hit for average. Um, so for me, it's either starting pitching or outfield because for both of your points about first baseman, I'm not so convinced anymore that Reese Hoskins is going anywhere. Um, I'm also not so convinced that with all the money and all the training and all the time they're putting into Bryce playing first and training at first, that they're going to not put him at first. This is why I feel like an outfield depth needs to happen because you may have lost Bryce from the outfield, which is fine, but I feel like that could be the inevitable future. You also have Derek Hall, like Damon, brought up. Alec Baum is a serviceable substitute, although I don't feel like you got to stop putting him back and forth from leave him at the hot corner and let that be. Um, so that's how I feel about if there's a deal with Nola. James, you were going to add something?
Yeah, I'll piggyback what you just said about the Reese Hoskins thing and the first baseman thing too. Um, yeah, Alec Bohm like switching them back and forth. It's gonna kind of screw up his mechanics. 1 minute he's at third base, and the other minute he's at first base. I don't want to say the word, but it kind of reminds me of a Scott Kingery thing. But it kind of seems like it. You know what I mean? Because it's like he does all these. I mean, he does great things. It's good to know you can have him at first baseman for a while and switch him back to third base. It's like it just doesn't sit well with me because it's just like you're gonna screw his head up.
My English professors are going to kill me when I say this. They're over canoickering with these guys. They're over canoickering. Yes, English professors. I'm sorry. I know that's not a word. But I'm
exaggerate. I would say exaggerating is the right word.
Yeah. So we're gonna wrap up soon, but before we do, I wanted to get your take on outside of Aaron Nola, what other guys are on the chopping block. I'll start. There's three. There's three for me that are on the chopping block. There is a pitcher by the name of Christopher Sanchez that I feel like has given some people some glimmers of like promise, but I just don't see the Phillies taking the leap of putting him in the starting rotation or in the bullpen officially. And I feel like he could garner you two decent prospects, possibly. Maybe even AA prospects. Castellanos, I know he's been hitting well, but have you seen enough, especially with his fielding blunders? In the last 3 weeks, he has had some fielding blunders that I just can't sign off on. Guys that play the outfield, and I get it. He wasn't supposed to be an everyday outfielder. He wasn't supposed to play that role, but he is where he is, folks. So if you are put in that responsibility, you better know how to play. Like I'm looking for a job currently. And I've said this to a couple people in passing. I said, I'm not going to sign up or apply for a job if I can't do it to my best and fullest of capabilities. If I can't fulfill all the responsibilities that you expect of me, I'm not going to apply because I can't give you all of me. I can't give you everything you need. Castellanos has been there as an outfielder for over a year, and he's still making like AAA fielder errors in the field, whether it's coming in and not being able to make up ground or misplaying the ball in the sky. That it just doesn't work for me. So, and I feel like you could get a decent haul if you sell what he's hitting like now. Now is the time that you would sell when his stock is up. The third is someone that I know is going to be an unpopular person to trade. But we did this once before and we managed. Garrett Stubbs. I feel like people are hard up for catchers. I feel like Garrett Stubbs could be a starter on other teams. And I feel like some of those teams that could view that would be willing to give a significant haul back to get that. I look at like the Soto deal. Soto is an exaggeration of what Garrett Stubbs is because I'm not comparing. I mean that there's no comparison. But if you're talking about catchers, the guy, can stick with anybody. So I'm just on those three. Sanchez, Castellanos, and Stubbs, I feel like could possibly be on that chopping block. Dame, do you have any other names other than Nola on this Phillies team that should be looking for a new
No, I haven't actually, to be honest, thought about it. It's funny. The other day, I said to somebody, and I said the wrong yesterday to my coworker. He's a legitimate Mets fan, but he's cool. He's my man. He's real cool. I said I don't like this team, but I meant to say I don't like the way they're playing. And it's funny because Let me ask you a question, guys. Like, it's weird with me with the Phillies. Like, because Utley, Howard, and Rollins was homegrown, and I'm attached to that team. I can even go back to the 80 team, with Schmidt, and I was a kid then with Bo and those guys. But I feel like with this team, and I like Harper and those guys, don't get me wrong, but I don't feel enough homegrown guys on this team. So it's hard for me to connect. It's weird. I'm weird like that. It's something about me and homegrown players. It's a little extra special. That doesn't mean I don't embrace the Harpers. That doesn't mean I don't do any of that. But it's just like, so with that said, I'm a little frustrated with the team as a whole. But that's just a small part of it, if it makes any sense. As far as people leaving, you're really shocking me with Castellanos. Because he's playing well, because everyone was saying, oh, you got to give him a year because he was in Ben Simmons' home, the whole shebang. He's turned it around. and here you are, Joe. Let's move him. Like, we should move him. And I'm like I don't know. I don't know. Like, I don't know if he's movable. Does it make the Phillies look bad if they did move him? Like, who want to come? Like, I don't know. That's a hard one. I'm not saying you're wrong. I haven't really explored it enough. And I think the only one, because Aaron Nola's a glaring one for me. Like, he's someone that I talked about before the season. And it's, you know how it goes, man. You go into a season, your contract year. He was fifth in Cy Young voting. He's up and down. He saved this in the playoffs. So he feels like he's worth this $200 million. I'm with you. I really wouldn't give him that. No. Because it would be the Tobias factor all over again for the
yes. Yeah. And here's the other concept, and I said this before, is that leading into the season, I said, well, everyone's like, I think Aaron's going to have another good year. I'm like, well, he always has one good year, one bad year, one good year, one bad year. So he had a good year last year, so that means he's due for the bad year this year. And sure enough, I was right. And when you can be that predictable, when I can sit there and believe me, I'm not like a soothsayer. I can't see the future in that way. Basically, for me, it's a matter of I don't want a guy that's going to give me mediocrity. I don't want to have to wait every other year for him to show up. To chime in on what you were saying about the homegrown, I get that. I really do. I understand where you're coming from. And I think that's why there's some people that are on both sides of the fence with Aaron Nola because he's homegrown. That's why I feel like there's people on both sides of the fence with Rhys Hoskins because he's homegrown. I feel like that's why a lot of people like Stott so much and like Alec Baum so much because they're homegrown. Yeah. These guys are homegrown, and when you put other players around them, like a Harper, like a Schwarber, like a Castellanos, like a Realmuto, like a Wheeler, you start to see the picture start to take shape, and you're like, well, is there enough homegrown that we could still say this was a homegrown if we win a championship, that this was a homegrown championship like 08? No. We would still have to say we bought our way into a championship.
Yeah.
But this is why I say with Castellanos, I'm an economics guy. You always sell high and buy low. Right now, Castellanos is high. We don't know how long that's going to last. We do know what he looks like at his low points. Just like where people say about Rhys, well, he's got his highs and he's got his lows. He can be at his high point where he's smoking the ball, or he can be like 0 for 24. We get that. So for what it's worth, I'm selling high while the going's good. And if I can get a haul, like if I can get someone that we should have had no business getting because of selling him high, then I'm good with that.
James, I'm going to make Joe's day. I know you didn't go yet.
No, it's all good.
We're sending Nola, Castellanos, Stubbs, and 2 minor leaguers for I just had his name. I'm in Anaheim for
Vicky Modiak.
huh?
Trout?
No, for the pitcher hitter.
Oh,
Otani.
We're gonna get
Oh.
Otani.
done.
Damn, he said done.
Done.
Dude, we're getting Otani. We're getting him,
Done.
James. We just
Done.
made the deal for it.
Where do I sign? How
You
fast
want me
can
to send him an Uber
Castellanos
to
get
the
to the
airport,
airport?
James, Joe?
How fast
Have
can
at it, man. Have at
Castellanos
it.
get to the airport? Like, seriously, like, can we get
I
an
just made
Uber
the
from
deal.
Atlanta and
But
send
Joe,
him
hold up,
to-
Joe, hold it. Let's take a pause on that for a second. You're Anaheim. You're getting Nola.
Yeah.
You're getting Castellanos high, right? What you talked about. You're getting
Yep.
Stubbs, who can start.
Yep.
I don't know their catcher situation, and we'll give you two because you're gonna have
Well,
to throw
they
in the
had-
two minor leaguers, except for the kid we got. Except for the kid that's coming. His father played in the pros. I forget his name. We drafted a couple of years ago. We're not giving him up. I forget his name.
No.
Oh yeah, I
No.
forgot about it.
Not
Crawford.
Crawford. Is it Crawford? Crawford.
Crawford.
Yeah, we're not giving you Crawford. He's
No,
untouchable.
No.
No.
But here's my feeling.
That would.
Listen.
I mean,
I
that'll
am
get
not-
a conversation going. That would get a conversation going.
I
don't know if
I'm-
the deal will get done, James, but the conversation would definitely get going.
Listen, I would not only like entertain that conversation. I would be at the airport driving the car to the gates. I would have
To the
flowers,
He's going to the gates.
sushi. I'd have like whatever kind of food Otani wanted. I would have whatever he
Oh,
wanted. I
man.
would be there with like a huge teddy bear saying "Welcome to Philly." But
Dude, that would get the
listen,
conversation.
I'm ready.
That would be a good conversation, man.
So I
For sure.
mean, but James, is there before we wrap up, like, is there anybody else, especially like who we've already talked about, is there anybody else that you feel like could be on the chopping block?
I was thinking about this when you were talking about Garrett Stubbs. I might have to go with Armando Sosa. Maybe Sosa might be a good piece that you could like trade to get somebody. I mean he's great. I mean, legitimately, he's a real good player. But if the price is right, I mean, yeah, it's like that. Thanks for stopping, but now it's like no. I mean, I want to ship him out, God forbid. But if, like I said, if the price was right, maybe you can like pick a deal with somebody from, I don't know, maybe like Seattle, or I mean, you're not gonna get like a big chunk of like player for Armando Sosa. I'm not saying that, but yeah, I think it would be like Sosa. Like when you mentioned Garrett Stubbs, the first person I thought was either him or Sosa. Probably will be gone by trade deadline.
Yeah, and you have to understand with Stubbs and Sosa, if you were to trade them just independently, you're not gonna garner like a big name, but you're gonna get possible prospect depth. And let's be honest, the farm system, it's not depleted, but if you're bringing up Painter or Abel or both, you are depleting a lot. So you have to bring in something that can keep that flourishing, because you got a 5-year window to get that farm system right. Because when Schwarber and if Castellanos is still here, and Turner and Harper towards the mid or end part of you need to have the turnover. So you have a 5-year plan, Mr. Dabrowski. So you have to figure out little pieces that can be taken out without a significant drop off. And both Stubbs and Sosa are bench pieces. So my feeling is, I do feel like that's a good enough. And look, we got decent guys. And I look at like what we did in the offseason with Veerling and all that. Like, we got decent production and decent, assets back for guys that were just role players on this team. So If Dabrowski just continues that thing, I think we're heading in the right direction. But in the regards of like Noah or possible Castellanos, I honestly think those kind of trades you have to bring back something that can help you in the here and the now, as well as maybe some in the future. That's going to do it for today's show. I before we go, I wanted to just say I want to wish all veterans, all first responders, all people that deal with a loss of a veteran or a person that served. I want to send a happy Memorial Day from the Pattison Ave Phanatics out to all of you. Please enjoy this beautiful weekend. Barbecue some ribs, get some things going. Enjoy the weather. Summer's here. June can't come soon enough, so Kyle Schwarber can start banging home runs out of the ballpark.
Yes, sir.
But for Damon Salim, Al Zafiri, Frank Finnegan, Tom Kelly, James Scorza, I'm Joe Marks. We are the Pattison Ave Fanatics, and we are out. Happy Memorial Day weekend, folks.
Happy
Memorial
Memorial
Day.
Day, guys. Later.
Thank you, soldiers.